the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Well. You know, the more I try to do varied topics, the more I get led right back into Brent Venables in Oklahoma. It seems like I'm not the only one outside of the Oklahoma fan base that has been impressed somewhat by how Brent Venables has handled this whole situation. From CBS Sports to the national applause that Bob Stoops has got by some of his commentary. Let's talk about it. Seems like the more I try to do varied topics and get away from the Brent Venables Oklahoma Raleigh situation, the more I get lured in. In the last couple of days, the national media, CBS Sports specifically, has been, seems like they're impressed with Brent Venables, even though they're giving it begrudgingly, in my opinion. It seems like he's pressed most of the right buttons, said most of the right things, and he's had an extraordinarily great visitation as far as recruits go this past week. All the recruits said went out of their way to go on Twitter and basically compliment Oklahoma and Brent Venables and how he handled the whole recruiting weekend. So it seems like this ain't just all in my head. But you guys and gals tell me what you think. Y'all drop it in the comment section and let me know. Do you think that Brent Venables is now being more impressive nationally? Do you think that Brent Venables could probably surpass expectations more so than what people really originally thought in a first-year head coach? Because as you know, from my recollection, a first-year head coach has never won a national championship. And from what CBS Sports is saying, it seems like they think that Brent Venables is going to make the playoff in his first year. So all these national media people that have been just railing and talking about how Lincoln Riley and USC are about to bring back the cheap Pete years, the more people are starting to come around to Brent Venables. Dennis Dodd and them usually are a little apprehensive about ranking a coach this high in the preseason in his first year, from my recollection. Now, let's see what we got here. The top 5 is who I'm going to give you on the CBS Sports thing. They had number 1, Alabama, number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Georgia. Those 3 in itself were expected, but at number 4, they have the Oklahoma Sooners. And right underneath them is another Big 12 team in Baylor. So, obviously, and this is another topic for another day, but obviously the Big 12 is not as bad and as people think it's going to be. Big 12 seems like it may be able to recuperate itself. Even after Oklahoma and Texas leave, they're bringing in some pretty good teams. But Brent Venables this past week brought in a number of recruits. And every single one of them, as I said, took to Twitter to make sure they went out of their way to compliment Oklahoma and how they were offered a scholarship and how they were treated in their recruiting visit. Now, normally recruits do, get on there and say something on Twitter, but usually you won't have this many from the same recruiting visit that just clamor to Twitter to make sure that they say something nice about the team that they just visited, because they got all these recruiting visits. What I was really impressed by was the fact that a lot of these players that he's going after are 4-star or higher defensive players. And like I said, they went out of their way to immediately go to Twitter and give Oklahoma many accolades in how they handled their recruiting visit, which is a big plus for a first-year head coach. I'm going to name off some of these players that came into town to visit Oklahoma, and every single one of these, like I said, went straight to Twitter with great compliments and how Brent Venables and his staff handled their visit. Christopher Jones, Jordan Pride, Jay Bryan, Harvey, Damani Maxon, excuse me if I butcher some of these names, Damian McDaniel, Dane Parker, Alexander Quintanilla, De'Bron Gatling, Austin Bowen, Jeremy Payne, Cole Goodnow, Kelly Time Jr. That's a great name for a football player. And this one right here, that's probably going to get me, Tupulia Afalava. Probably some Samoan player, Hawaiian, or whatever. But all those players came into town, and every single one of them had nothing but good things to say. And with today's social media and Twitter and whatnot, these players are apt to say just about anything, even negative. I mean, just ask Texas about the recruit that came in there and talked about how all they had was swimming championships in the trophy case. So, the thing that strikes me is that Brent is taking all this in a very striveful manner. You don't see him out there making asinine comments, getting on a podcast or writing letters to a newspaper. And then on top of that, you got Bob Stoops in tow. Bob Stoops was involved in the program when Lincoln Riley was here, but it seems like Bob Stoops has took this personally and made sure that he helps Brent in whatever way he can. He even went to the state legislature and had to make a comment, like I said, about, hey, Lincoln Riley didn't invent Oklahoma football. This thing's been going for quite some time. So then Bob goes on a national stage and makes comments about the NCAA and their lack thereof of being able to harness and reel this NIL thing in sooner than what they should have. And they should have been on this a lot sooner than what they have. And Bob calls them out on it. And that brings national attention to what? Oklahoma football. Because Bob Stoops, in his podcast, is openly supportive of the Oklahoma Sooners, his former employer. So people see that and they're like, man, these guys not only have an energetic, charismatic, over-the-top, energetic coach, and they got a former coach that has national prowess and has the national media, has their attention. And that's just things that's hard to buy and hard to come by. The stuff that you really can't buy is the genuine attitude that comes across from Brent Venables and Bob Stoops. That heart, you can see that heart, that passion for what they believe in. And recruits see that too. And recruits will eventually come around. Now, I was on a live stream with John Kurtz the other day, and he was talking about the reason why. He said I was being a little too hard on Lincoln Riley. And he said that the reason why he thinks I was being too hard is that Lincoln Riley will likely come in, even though USC was a 4-win team, they have the resources and the money to make their team successful. And mention the fact that it is Los Angeles. Yeah, I'm getting so tired of hearing about how, oh, it's Los Angeles and they're going to be so great. People are going to come out. What have they been the last 15 years? If it's so damn great. It's not. Los Angeles is not Los Angeles of the Cheap Pete years. I'm sorry to tell you. Sorry to tell you, brother. And their resources are going to put them over the top. Won't we ask Texas about that? Just because you have money and resources doesn't automatically mean you're going to win a national championship. You might get close a few times, like Oregon, with Nike money, but it doesn't mean you're going to win a national championship. You got to have more than just resources. You got to have a fan base that's invigorated. You got to have people that are going to actually show up to the games, and you got to have passion. And they just don't have it out there in LA anymore. As a matter of fact, you got a few nicknames for LA. As you've already heard about the Skittle Shitters, I'm going to take a poll on this. Should should I call them the Skittle shitters? Or the liberal spastics? Or how about the monkeys in the zoo playing in their poo? Because they think everybody's laughing with them, but we're laughing at them. That might be a good one. Monkeys in the zoo playing in their poo. And that's all I got to say about that. You guys and gals, as I said before, drop in the comment section, tell me what you think. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams.